Welcome, seekers and visionaries, to Oracle Mountain Chats. Here on this sacred virtual peak, we gather a space for oracles to share their wisdom, their visions, and their craft. It all began with a calling I could not ignore. One day, within a vision, I held this conch shell in my hands, and as I blew its resonant note into the world, I felt its vibration ripple across unseen realms. It was a summons, a signal to fellow oracles scattered near and far. I saw that we were on a mountain, vast and towering, reaching into the heavens. At its base, the world buzzed with life, people moving, creating, searching. Yet at the summit, there was stillness, clarity, and a circle of light. There, oracles stood, their gaze focused both outward and inward. They spoke of the energies they felt, the shifts they saw, and the whispers of the unseen. They weren't above the world, they were its witnesses and its guides. From this vision, OracleFest was born, a celebration of connection, insight, and the timeless wisdom that flows through us all. The message was clear. It is time. Time to meet upon this sacred mountain, to share what we hear, feel, and see. Time to bring the wisdom of the divine to a world that is yearning for its guidance. Through OracleFest, we've created a movement of community, all yearning to empower their own inner oracle. And here in Oracle Mountain Chats, we bring that spirit into a more intimate space. This is where the oracles gather to reflect, exchange ideas, and to explore what wishes to come through in the moment. This mountain is more than stone and sky. It is a meeting place of the realms, a threshold between seen and unseen, known and unknown. Here we gather as oracles to share the visions Spirit whispers to us, to speak of the energy currents flowing through nature and humanity, and to help guide those who seek answers in a world that often feels lost. So grab a seat, breathe in the mountain air, and join us as we begin today's chat. Whether it's an energy reading, a conversation about our craft, our path, or simply sharing a perspective on the world below, this is where we wait for more oracles to join us on the mountain. What wisdom will the mountain bring us today? Let's find out together. Step into this sacred space where the wisdom of the ages converges with the questions of the present. Well, here we are again on the mountain, and this time we're joined by Dr. Stephen Farmer, who I have to say was one of my little giddy, wow, this OracleFest is really shaping up to be in quite a good alignment, because I personally have felt really connected to your work, and I've carried your book around. I was just talking with you before we started this recording about my lifestyle being a little all over the place and a little nomadic. And somehow, throughout all these different iterations of where I've lived, I've carried your book since 2018, if you can believe that. And
Oh,
I was
I love
getting,
it. I love it, Kate. Yeah.
I refer to it, and this is the book for anyone who's watching on the video,
Oh, the animal spirit
the Animal
guides. Yeah,
Spirit
yeah.
Guides book, right?
Yeah.
Because I just love the way you break down how we look at animals as guides, because they have different meanings depending on how they show up. And I've always found that. And this is the first text that really broke it down in a way that to me made sense for lots of different applications. And so I use it as a really beautiful resource. I've probably sold a few just from being emphatic about it to clients doing shamanic work over the years. And you have a large history in doing shamanic work, but you also held many other titles. You have written how many books at this point have you written?
Oh, good. I have to stop and count them, but I had a period. I'm also a therapist, a psychotherapist licensed in California. And back in the days, I actually produced 4 books as a therapist. And one that still I took and reprinted it as a 25th anniversary edition. And it was one of the first books about the effects of abuse. And now it's, we understandably call it trauma, and the effects of trauma. So that absolutely, it started me off in that direction as a therapist, is understanding more and more as information came into our culture about how devastating trauma can be and how we carry the effects of that trauma on into adulthood, especially childhood trauma when we're young and more vulnerable to something like that. And that's not my only gig, but I think I liken my work as weaving. I've got the psychotherapy license. I trained in shamanism, in a particular kind of shamanism that is suitable for contemporary times and also for our culture, our larger culture.
Mhm.
In addition to uh, the four books as a therapist, there was a large gap there, and then I did some training in shamanism and I went, I got to write about this stuff. And that started the ball rolling with both, started with sacred ceremony, and this time of year that we're recording this, at the winter solstice, important, there's ceremonies you can do that welcome the light, basically. That's the biggest theme. And then oracle cards, like we spoke briefly about. I got very interested in providing a lot of means for people to be able to find guidance in their lives. And my premise in part for that is I think we need that right now. So I congratulate you for what you're providing too, and thank you for that. I admire you for that. That our information from spirit is available in so many different ways. And thankfully, it's not just me. There's a lot of people like yourself and other people that are kind of pointing the way and saying, "Hey, go listen to the trees." And often I think there's probably people out there that go, "What do you mean listen to the trees?" They can hear the wind blowing, and all that, which is great. It's a start. But listen to the voice of the trees would be one poetic way to say it. That the life force of that tree is connected to the life force of all other trees. You could call it a collective consciousness of trees. And then here's this one huge pine that's right before you as you wander through the forest. And you go, wait a minute, Kate and Stephen were just talking about that. Let me try this out, how I can maybe get a message from this particular tree that represents. I sometimes call them a sales rep, you know, trying to tell you a message that's valuable for you. And I don't think it's a no-brainer to just, look at, read the news, look at the state of the world these days and what's going on. There's a lot of shifts on the planet itself. There's a lot of shifts. There's the evolution of the planets, which, by the way, is a very natural phenomena. It's been going on for 4.5 billion years. However, human beings weren't around, on previous times on the planet that are significant changes took place. Let's leave it at that. So, and then there's the human element, the wars that are going on, the transitions, the changes, the political stuff that's happening, especially in the States here. We're about to, uh, I don't even want to go there, but we had, I was told by my guides, stay out of it,
Yeah.
stay out of it. That's not my job. That's not my purpose. And I get that, in my heart of hearts. So that's a lot, in response to your question. But yeah, it's available to us, and you're one of the teachers of that. I am also, and I know that's clearly my purpose. It's to inspire, to encourage, to heal, and I stay on purpose. I would say much of the time. I get angry sometimes, just like any other human being. I'm a human being first and foremost. And yet I've had the good luck, if you will, to have been called upon this path. And it's just amazing I look at it. I was in a men's group last night. We were just talking about that. Isn't that odd? Just think back on your life and all the ways, the twists and turns that it's taken, to bring you here and what it's like to be a mammal that's alive, functioning, etc. and has this self-reflective consciousness that we've grown very fond of, almost too fond of, in a certain way, thinking that, oh, we're the biggest deal on the planet. We're not, you know, but we have a role here. We're here for a purpose. And I'd say part of that purpose is to come in alignment with what our long ago ancestors knew. And a good friend of mine said it very well. He said, it's not about living on the land, it's about living with the land. And that just one little word that changes the focus tremendously. So I'm kind of going off here, but
Love me a
back to,
good tangent. I'm never mad about a good tangent. It was a good role and lots of different, like, important pieces there for people too, because I think similarly, um, I tend to find that, the more you explore the causes and ways that people are suffering, the more different aspects you want to help with, because
yeah,
animal spirit guides may not be that person's first thing, and it might be psychotherapy, and then it might also be that they tried psychotherapy, it didn't really jive with them, but they read your book and they're so inspired, right? And so then there's all these different, like, um signposts that people can go
yeah,
in all these
and
different directions, and we don't know what our sort of our own concoction is going to be until we reach those things.
well, circling back to your original question, the how many books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Our discussion before going on the podcast, so let's just take off, and see where
Yep.
we go.
Yep.
But I feel very lucky and very blessed, that I've had the opportunity to write and publish these books. Not because am I making $1 million, with each book? No, that is not my motive at all. I'm very lucky with that. I have enough to feed myself. I have a shelter, and I'm very grateful for that. And gratitude is a big deal. Speaking of oracles, I pulled a card yesterday, just saying, just generally, what do you want to communicate to me and the rest of the world? And it was from the Power Animal Oracle cards, and it was of all animals, it was kangaroo. And the theme was gratitude, and I stress that in the men's group I mentioned that, I participate in once a month. We talked a lot about that, being just what are we grateful for, to keep that in the forefront, just right next to love, keep that in the forefront as a base of operation. So I went on to and published Earth Magic, Healing Ancestral Karma. I condensed animal spirit guides to a pocketbook because people might be wandering through the forest or
See,
somewhere.
the pocketbook I maybe needed to know about 6 years ago, but now that we're here, I live on this.
Oh,
Pocketbook
good,
really would
good.
have been helpful. This is worth the suitcase space.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a little book that is easy to
Oh,
carry. Yeah,
precious.
you put it in your purse, your backpack, whatever.
I love that.
And it's a condensation. It gets to, um, it condenses, to just, well, if you spot this kind of animal, this might be the message.
Hmm.
And then it gives you, as you well know, it gives you samples of possibilities. And then often when you read that, then one or two of them will jump out at you
Hmm.
as a piece of guidance. Excuse me. And I'm also interested in, maybe I shouldn't say this, but uh, teaching people ways to do this without the book, But all right, everybody who's listening, get the book or the books first.
Get the book and also learn from Stephen. I think both are useful.
I agree, to put all that aside, yeah, I'm very pleased with the book and the response, that I've gotten from not just the Animal Spirit Guides and the Pocket Guide, but also to other books like Earth Magic, Healing Ancestral Karma, and I'm probably leaving out a couple here and there, but I expect I'm going to produce at least a couple more books before, they throw me into the grave or my body, excuse me.
I'd like to know
Like I
who they
said,
is, but all right.
I think my team,
Right, right.
they're going to be
Till they
around there,
choose the
right?
day for you.
Yeah, non-visible beings or ordinarily not visible. Anyway, so yeah, and again, there's a process that we can talk on. I'm glad to share that you can go through that you can also learn, like you said, both. it's handy to have a reference like the book. And there's a few others, or Oracle cards, not just mine, but other Oracle cards, because there's quite a few of them. And you have to discern, which ones, really are compatible with who you are. What feels the best? What resonates? There are angel cards. There's other kind of earth-oriented cards, etc. There's a ton of them, and I feel very blessed and privileged to have contributed to that. And they're very useful, but they're not the whole thing. There's, in addition, as you're walking through the forest and you didn't bring your backpack and you don't have the pocket guide or you don't have an oracle card, there's ways to still receive message. My 25 words or less teaching about animal spirit guides is when an animal shows up to you in an unusual way or repeatedly in a short space of time. The premise is that spirit is sending that being across your path. And it could be a dream too. It could be a book that you open to, a picture that you get repetition of that same animal showing up. And it's not animal communication. There are people that do that. They're very excellent. I can tell. I've got a 4-year-old lab, and when he wants attention, it's very clear what he's communicating. He'll come up to me here at the desk and put his paw on my leg and look at me with those eyes and the ears back.
Oh, the eyes.
Hey, boss, what are we going to do? Are you going to play with
Yeah.
me or what's going on? Or scratch my chest, or my belly, something, anything. Just give me attention. And okay. Anyway, so I know I'm not an animal communicator, is what I'm saying. But spirit animals, yeah, it's when an animal shows up in an unusual way or repeatedly, then that's when it's time to pay attention. So let's say I live in Ashland, Oregon, and the wildlife are very protected here. And I have done this about 3 or 4 times where there's been a trail of 3 deers crossing the road. And they feel safe. They're just like sauntering along, and all of us stop for the deers to let them cross. For instance, turkeys show up quite often, wild turkeys. Anyway, I posted on Facebook, let's say the deer, and I say this, if you were me and you saw this and my teachings, what message might you get? Close your eyes, ask the question, and then just see what you experience in response to that question. I'll repeat that. This is how you get the message. And it takes some practice, but it's not that difficult. I think everybody could do it. It's not that difficult. Let's say if you spot that one, let's say just use the example of deer, and you spot a deer, let's say as you're walking around the forest or something like that, and you go, wait a minute, Dr. Farmer just heard this interview, with Kate, and here's what he said to do, and I'm going to do this. Okay. Deer, not the deer, not the deer that I'm seeing. Yes, he's like I said, the sales rep, the one to present himself, but he's also part of the collective consciousness of all deer. So it's a pretty big deal when you view it this way, when you approach it this way. So in your mind, or even whispered or out loud to some degree, you can say, dear, dear spirit, what's your message? And the trick or the art is to be able to, once you've finished that request, then keep your eyes, ears, and your body open to any messages that you get, what you see with your eyes. And it could be in your mind's eye, with your eyes closed. It could be that your eyes are directed to something around you. What you hear, the inner voice, or a sound, or even a conversation by some people, that the important stranger that walks by, or sensations in your body. You get a tightening of the gut, and you go, that's interesting. Okay. What is that telling me? And we use that term, the gut instinct, and it really is true. That's our instinct, responding. So we may connect that instinctual physical response to a thought in our minds. And I am of the persuasion lately that that's really how the intuition operates. We may not be aware of the body sensations, but boom, it shoots to the brain and there's a thought that comes out. Some people call that the fourth way is cognitive. I've always had a little trouble with that, and somebody else thinks differently. No problem. It doesn't matter to me, but I like intuition. Your intuition is operating, whether you're aware of it or not, it's initiated by your physical response, by your bodily response. Anyway, so what you hear, what you see, what you feel, let's keep it simple. And then that's the message. It may be clear and direct. It's time for you to donate that money you'd set aside, to Defenders of Wildlife or Oceana or one of those organizations that, you've supported in the past. It may be something like, yeah, that friend that you were going to call, it's time to call him. It's just simple stuff like that that helps us direct our life. Or if we're walking through the forest, to use that analogy, don't go down the path on the right. Not good. Go to the one that curves to the left. Okay, but I really want to go down that one on the right. Your call, dude. You know, you ask for a message. Here's the message. Up to you what you do with it. That's the other element. So that, it takes practice, but again, I want to keep it simple. Ask the question telepathically when you see an animal in an unusual way. And again, it could be you wake up with a big dream, about a elephant. You go, elephant? I'm nowhere near Africa or anything like that, or India. Um, that's legit too. Sorry, I got distracted. My door just moved. Oh, it's my dog. He
Opening
leaned
the door to
against it.
spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, right. There you go. Good one. Thank you, Kate. That's good. I could go into that and ask for a meaning. And what's the meaning of that?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know what? I did get a message. Interestingly enough, I didn't really even ask, just noticed, and I listened. And that's often auditory is where I get a lot of my messages,
Mm.
and it corresponds with a theme, that's shown up in the guidance that I've received. That yes, this is a new era that's opened up. That's the best way I describe it. And that, in a way, kind of saying, you ain't done yet. We're gonna keep you working. And
Your day's
they
not here
chose me.
yet. Yeah,
I swear to God, Kate, I swear, I feel chosen.
of course you
Because
are.
I'm a Capricorn too, and
Oh.
our reputation is that we work.
Hmm.
I'll tell you a short story, and then I'll come back to what we were talking about or what I was rattling away about. And I saw it. I wish I could find this. It was just so clever. About 11-year-old girl, 12-year-old girl. I think it was on Instagram. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was Instagram a few years back. She shows up and she goes through the 12 astrological signs. And in each one, she changes her clothes. She changes what she has to say. And they're very brief. They're like 10 seconds. For instance, Aquarius. She shows up in like a gown of some sort, with stars and, the moon, etc. on the gown. And she's looking up, gazing at the sky and saying, I know they're coming. I can't wait till they get here. I know they're coming, to poke fun at Aquarius.
Yep.
The one about Capricorn, Kate, she had a clipboard. She was dressed in a suit and a tie and had glasses on, which she didn't ordinarily have on. And she's got a clipboard and a pen. And she looks out at the camera and she says two words, I work. And then off to the next one. And I went, oh my God, they know me.
I'm always so blessed to know Capricorns because my North Node is in Capricorn. So the more I step into that energy, the better I feel, and the more I feel like I'm achieving, my soul's mission throughout this lifetime. And I'm an Aries, though. I'm very much a true Aries in
What
this.
is Aries? Tell me about Aries.
For me, it comes across as a very passionate and direct and has this ambition, but I kind of want everyone on the same page with me. I just want us all to succeed all at the same time. And so
Okay.
some people
Well,
don't find that as encouraging. A lot of my best friends are Pisces. They're like, you go achieve that way.
yeah,
I'll
you go
enjoy our
ahead.
friendship. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm just going to have fun with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly.
Yeah. Um, anyway, so I was talking. Yeah, to back. It's just a funny little thought that comes in. I'm a storyteller too. So little stories like that will show up depending on what we're talking
That's
about.
a beautiful way to be. I think that's actually something that can often be lost within these more ancient ways is our ability to tell stories and be listening and responding and taking the meaning from them, right? Like I hear a story from you and then I still have my own senses open. Oh, I wonder what that's saying or what this feeling is. And that's a beautiful space for anyone to be in. And it's this total receptivity, which I think is where like a lot of these tools come from is an ability to be receptive in the present moment. And then, as you would know with your work being a psychotherapist, you would know the ways that sometimes that receptivity gets interrupted through experiences of trauma or defenses or so much activity in the brain. We forget the feelings in our bodies.
Yeah, amen. I think that somebody once said that, that we are a forgetful species, and
Mhm.
speaking of the long range, what our ancestors knew,
Yeah.
long ago ancestors knew, living with the land, and the good news, I think, and I do want to bring that in, is that many of us are in this, I would call it the awakening process, an awakening to these larger realities. So I think there's a real grace with that
Mhm.
we're now connecting with the creator, God, source, spirit, whatever you give that force, and not to become fundamentalist about any of it. Just recognize that you might call it source or spirit. I might call it God, that's okay. We're kind of talking in the same arena, you know, and what we want to do in my way of thinking is too, is as teachers, is to put something else out there too that nudges us along, because we've been nudged along, so to speak, or we've been called to do this work. It definitely is a calling. It's not something that I feel like I chose. And
Nope.
yet I'm on board. I love it,
Yeah.
and I'm very blessed to do it. Yeah, you feel the same way.
I feel the same. We were just talking about lifestyle and the different paths and things that I take. And half the time someone says, "Oh, you must be so brave," or "Oh, that's so interesting." I go, "Yeah, I didn't choose it."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I'm not really afraid. I know it's what I'm supposed to do. So I don't really feel much fear. And I just kind of do the things now. And yeah, it's funny. I was thinking, oh, it must, on any given day, must feel like a nudge or a calling, depending on how resistant we are to going and doing things.
I like, yeah, what comes to mind is I went to the Church of Religious Science many, many years ago. Great, great minister. And I remember what she said. She says, "You're all going to go into the future. You can go into the future kicking and screaming or gracefully. It's up to you." So I went, "They're not going to make me go."
Yeah.
But, guess what? I think they tied me up and dragged me out or kept going, whispering in my ear and sleep,
Yeah.
"Stephen, Stephen, you know, this is what you got, etc., different ways. But the good news in all that, however it happens, and I want to put another thought in is it's often through surviving a period of suffering
Mhm.
that the opportunity, and I know that may sound a little strange, but the opportunity presents itself to make very significant changes. And I wouldn't wish suffering on anybody, but I look back on my life and I go, amen. You
Yep.
know, it's been true. And to also, during that period, develop skills. And there's ways now, these days, in the last several years, to understand about trauma as the base that really cuts us off, from our bodies, that we carry the consequences of the traumatic experiences, especially those in childhood when we're more vulnerable. And again, the good news is, as a psychotherapist, I'm coming from that voice, is there's a lot of, well, I won't say a lot, but there's a few really great technologies or techniques that have come down. There's eye movements, using eye movements to heal the trauma, the tapping. You mentioned, I heard you say tapping, emotional freedom technique, tapping different energy centers, of the body. There's somatic experiencing, Peter Levine. I did a 3-year certification in that. And I just went, wow, this is it. So it's synergistic with my shamanic work. And so I am fortunate that when I see clients or I do a workshop or when I can draw from both of these kind of traditions to be able to offer what I'm here for, which is healing and teaching. So I want to go gracefully. I've learned to grow gracefully, I must say, I'll pat myself on the back. Thank you, ego.
Yeah.
You helped us out here, bud. So anyway, that's the other thing that I'm enjoying these days is I'll still see clients for shamanic work or trauma recovery, and I can use shamanic tools for trauma recovery or some of the other trainings that I've done, including somatic experiencing. What has evolved, and I think it's been about 3 years, 4 years ago, might be a little bit more, is I also offer a mentorship program. And part of it is, as the listeners can't see me, but as I call it gray, but it's white hair. I've been through the enough life that I carry a lot of experiences, and with all humility aside or arrogance aside, just a man of wisdom. Often that's what happens for a man or a woman at a certain age of just being surviving at least, but also learning to walk through life with grace, is you become a woman of wisdom or a man of wisdom. And somewhere in that passage, that's when it's your role to tend to the situations and to the healing that's needed for our children, our grandchildren, their children, et cetera, et cetera. I have a great deal of hope, whether I'm right or wrong about it or not, but that things can be turned around. And I have 2 daughters, grown daughters, and I have grandchildren, and they're going to have children at some point, I assume. And so, learn how to be with this world in a different way, because the big changes are there. So a lot of what we're talking about, even here, Kate, I think is management tools. How do we manage, maybe the anxiety we feel, when we've read too many news stories?
Or the anger you mentioned earlier, right? It's totally natural to feel anger. And when we hold on to the burdens of resentment, it really starts to do damage on us in some kind of way. But how can we be with that in a truthful way, right? Like I say to some of my clients, I think anger is very much meant to be a fuel. So why don't we put it towards something and then you will feel better because you've taken some kind of action, right? And it's not just sitting there doing, well, useless things in your own body.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of grieving.
It is.
The loved one that you've lost, or any loss really is bound to provoke some kind of anger.
Mhm.
My philosophy, Kate, is I'm willing to feel that. I just do not want to live there.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Let it
feel it.
keep
Write
moving.
a letter. Journal.
Yeah.
I have a very share a journaling process I do, which is every day. I've done it for 15 years. In this style, which is put the date up. I do it on computer. I've got tons. I've got a stack of spiral notebooks. I did this. I've done this most of my life. I was writing journals. I'm a writer. What can I say? But anyway, the journaling is a certain style. Let's put it that way. One, put the date on. Okay, write about what's going on in my life. This is happening. This is happening. Decisions that are approaching, etc. And then part two of this is then I just kind of clear that out of the way. Okay, that's there. And then, as someone I spoke with just recently, it becomes a version of automatic writing.
Mm.
And what I mean by automatic writing is I put my hands on the keyboard, feet on the floor, like I'm just now doing, take a few breaths, and then whoever shows up, and typically it's just one I call the teacher. I think it's a council of ancestors. I've been told. Anyway, my hand starts writing, and anybody who's done automatic writing knows what I'm talking about. It's like, wow. And then you read what you wrote, and you go, I was there, but there's a part of me, I put him over here, next to me on the chair, just to allow this to be a channel for the information that's coming forth that provides guidance. So I encourage, people to give that a try. You don't need to do it just the style I described, but just try it for a week or two. Every morning after you get your cup of coffee or whatever you do in the morning, but before you jump into the day, sit down, whether longhand with a pen and paper or on a computer, a laptop, iPad, whatever it might be. Ask your spirit guides or a spirit guide for information. Speaking of oracle, that's in a very real sense, then that becomes a communication from an oracle. Could be a spirit animal, could be an ancestor, could be an archangel. It could be, an ascended master. Moses shows up, something like that. Um, I'm not sure source, God, Great Spirit is necessarily the one to receive the messages from, because I go by a teaching, excuse my throat there, a little froggy this morning. I go by a teaching that from some African tribes that believe God is too big to directly communicate with.
Mm-hmm.
So there are intermediaries. And frankly, I think that helps it be a little more tangible.
Yeah.
The teacher or an ancestor or a spirit animal, raven, that shows up, who has shown up occasionally and passed along the guidance for the morning. That works best, as the intermediaries. So I want to advise people. And then if you decide, oh, I still want to hear God, Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God. He went directly to God. So it's possible to do that. It's just based on my experience that we have intermediaries that are easier to access. Walking through the forest, seeing the deer go across your path right in front of you, 10 feet away. There's an intermediary. So
And
anyway, go ahead.
beautifully, no, it's good you brought back the deer, because I forgot to mention too, and it reminded me. Um, Often too, it can be, I think, before the moment happens where it crosses your path. And so I'll often ask people to, like, the state of presence is that actually, as you're walking, this happened to me a few months ago with a deer, which is what made me think of it. And I was walking up this very big hill that I lived on, like few hundred feet above sea level, very big hill in Scotland that I lived on top of. And so it was always this kind of arduous thing, but I was happy in my mind. I was thinking actually about family and what growing my own family means to me, if that's meant to happen in my lifetime, just musing about these things, kind of trying to feel out where is my soul leading me. And I had always wanted to see a deer in this forest. I'd seen them popping around, but none really at the times that I would go out, because lots of people would be on the trails. And then there was this deer preening herself, just like licking her hind leg, and then looks at me. And we had this, when you have this moment of animal eye contact where it just goes right through you. And it was because of what I had been thinking. And the approach that Dear Spirit was guiding me to take was for the topic that was in my mind as that moment happened. And so then we invite, like,
Yeah.
the state of watching your thoughts, through automatic writing, or your state of presence in general, becoming more and more important. So you can kind of string these dots together, or I don't know if we string dots, but whatever it is we're
No,
doing,
I got
knitting,
you. No,
weaving.
I think you brought up an excellent point too, is that it can coincide with whatever is going on with you at that time, typically what your thoughts are about, or a feeling that you're having, or something like that, that then the animal shows up. Caw, caw. I look
Yeah.
up and there's a crow. Oh, wait, what was going on just then? What was happening in
Yes.
my experience? and then using that as a marker to go, okay, then what's the message?
Yeah.
From Crow. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
bringing that up is important too. The point being, is that's another perspective on how we can receive guidance.
Mhm.
That here on Oracle Mountain, we're talking about oracles, and in one sense, that's a pretty good description of any of this, what we've been talking about with our conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I encourage people, wake up, stay attentive to these things. Try it out. I sometimes say to people or on interviews like this, don't believe me and don't disbelieve me. The best science, step into it, try it out, see what happens. It's another phrase, famous phrase. Try this and then see what happens.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I have an idea, but I don't know what's going to happen in your experience, just like what you described.
Yeah.
Meandering thoughts about, gosh, what's going to happen here? Am I going to settle down one of these days, and have babies and, all that stuff, whatever it may be, whatever the nature might be, and you get deer looking right at you like that. I would say that's definitely a sign.
Yeah.
The other is repetition. If I want to put a plug in for that too, is
Mhm.
look for repeated symbols, not just spirit animals,
Mhm.
but other symbols or other messages that are congruent with the original message. So it's like a exclamation point.
Yeah.
If you hear the same message or you get the same message, I would say 3 times in a short space. Listen, dude, pay attention
That's it.
and do what's asked and find out what happens. See what happens. There we go again.
Oh yeah.
Give it a go.
Yeah, because really, I mean, after three, you're just arguing against fate because everything is powerful in threes, right? So if you can ignore a fourth time, that's on you then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Heads up, be careful. Not
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
not to,
I
not,
definitely I like the exclamation mark thing too, the exclamation point. I definitely say that to people as well. That's what it feels like. Feels like an
yeah.
exclamation point. It's like ding, something's popped up
Yeah.
here.
Sometimes the term synchronicity comes up, when we talk about these things. And I think that's a good way. Synchronicity just means there's some kind of synchronization that's occurring between you and the world of spirit that's showing up even in the physical form.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. I have thought of a couple other ways, just again, my always thinking about words, especially because I'm a writer. Um, take the word coincidence and take the co, put a dash there, and then incident. So it's a co-incident. Aren't I clever?
I love it. I love it. You said that in our first conversation we had, and it sat with me for a few days and it made me
Totally.
chuckle. Oh,
Yeah.
because it also it lightens you up and it also gives you a bit of power. Like we were a part of that. I love the idea of co-creation. I think that's what we do here at OracleFest. It's just
Yeah.
co-creating with how can I create for, what you're creating. And yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I think life is
coincidence.
always doing this kind of weaving that's going on, and that's when we get repeated signs and
Yes.
symbols that show up and messages from whatever spirit animals, the stars or the moon, grandmother
Mm-hmm.
moon 2 days ago. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself, without any looking for a message or anything like that, just to enjoy and kind of stand in the awesome experience of witnessing this beautiful being, and I do mean being,
Mm-hmm.
in the sky that provides the nightlight and possibly a message, but we're going to leave that alone. Just enjoying the pure presence, as you used that word earlier.
Absolutely. And we
Oh,
do have to enjoy it in order to do anything with it. Like often people can get caught up in the spirit and the mental realm of, oh, I've accessed all this information and I maybe have a bit of an attitude. I'll say, well, what are you going to do with it? you know?
right,
And so if
right.
you're not here and present and enjoying your life and connecting with nature and connecting with the earth as a part of who you are, it can be really challenging to actually bring all that beautiful spirit connection that someone has access to into this world, into being.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's I believe what we're being called in this, what I've called the awakening, not just me, but the awakening process. And notice the word process. It is a process. It's not a state where you, boom, one solid state of being, that there's continually movement or the flow.
Mhm.
And to, as was said to me, it's not about just being in the flow, it's about being the flow.
Yeah.
You know, we are consciousness expressing as a certain being. In this case, Dr. Stephen Farmer. You know, in your case, it's consciousness expressing as Kate Graham, so that we can connect with other aspects or expressions of consciousness that appear in the physical realm as well as the ordinarily non-visible realm.
A beautiful, poignant, and profound way to end this Oracle Mountain chat, I would say.
Yeah,
Allowing
thank you,
everyone to
Kate.
get into this open perspective and feel that as true for themselves. And
Yeah, thank you, Kate. Yeah,
hey, it's my pleasure and it's my honor as well. And I'm so grateful that you're continuing to share wisdom. You could just settle in and put your feet up, but the calling is asking you to do more and more, and I'm grateful for it. Very
well,
grateful that you're joining us in this first Oracle Fest, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of you as well over the years. And I'm very much looking forward to whatever it is that you bring to the Oracle Fest event. I know people will be blessed for having experienced
I
it.
appreciate it.
Thank you
And I
again.
thank you for the invitation, and thank you also for bringing people like myself and others, you know, into this context here, but also that what you're on purpose. That'd be a
Thank
simple
you.
way to say it. Yeah, you
Thank
know
you.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
doing
welcome.
doing my best. Still being human, but doing my best.
And that too. You know,
Yeah.
like
Beautiful. Well, thank you again.
if I
I'm
spill
sure. Yeah.
if I spill the coffee, I suddenly become very human.
Yeah, exactly. I've been lucky not to spill my coffee during this chat, but I'm sure if I had, you would see my humanness.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, this
well,
isn't supposed to happen. Anyway, go ahead.
exactly, exactly. No, I don't get to write those things. Those things are just left up to chance.
Yep.
And let's leave on this high, happy note. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at Oracle Fest. I know everyone else will be as well. And go check out everything that Dr. Stephen Farmer has done, because he has many signposts. You're going to find a way into your healing if you resonate with him. So, looking forward to having you there. Thanks again.
Thank you, Kate. All right.